Okay, perfect.
All right, man. Happy
Okay.
Saturday.
Yeah,
What's
it
good?
is quite the Saturday indeed. It was a rough night for me. I'm not gonna lie to you. I went
Um,
out last night. Well, not out, but I went to work. That's what I
okay.
consider going out.
You went into the world. Yeah, I guess.
Exactly. I went out and I worked and after work I had some friends that came to visit me. I'm a bartender. I bartend on the side
Okay.
when I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
We live in a world where everybody is a slash slash. You know what I mean? They're like
Yeah.
I'm a bartender slash interviewer slash whatever.
Yeah, man.
So I went out and I was bartending, and some of the regulars came by, and they're like, "Dude, we're gonna go party at my house after. Why don't you come and stop on by?" And I'm like, "Well, I do have an interview tomorrow, but I'm gonna, yeah, I'll be good, you know."
Yeah.
And you do that. We all do that. We all tell ourselves that we're gonna be good, and we're going to, do what's right because we have something in the morning. And so I went out, and sure enough, I didn't get home till like 5 in the morning.
Oh,
Just because I was so used, I was not so used, but I was so unused to just being out and
yeah,
being
man.
around people.
Well, I mean, you needed that, man. That's the universe's way. Like, if that just kind of happens, it's like you deserve it, man. I'm glad you did that for yourself, because we've been all like so cooped up, so it's like sometimes you get that opportunity to do that thing and you're just like, oh yeah, send it. Why not? You deserve it, man.
Thank you, thank you so much.
Of
Does that
course.
ever happen to you, or has that happened to you lately?
Honestly, yeah, I've been really trying to be very we've been homebodies since this whole thing started. I live with my girlfriend, and we've got a little dog who is, makes life pretty fun. Um, but we've been really careful. So like we haven't there's been a couple, as like the ebb and the flow of this whole like situation has happened. Like we've seen some people like a couple of close friends, and we went over to a buddy's house for like the 4th of July. But that's the thing. I mean, it's always like we ended up staying like really, really late, because it's like once you're in it, you're like, oh man, I don't want to go home and just be in the 2 rooms that I've lived in for the past 4 months. Like, it doesn't sound. No, I'm not gonna do that. Like, so definitely
Yeah,
there.
yeah. You know what's funny? You did mention your dog, and your dog's name is Chewy.
Oh yeah.
And it got me to think about the way you play, because you obviously you play loud. And what do you do to combat that in your dog's hearing? Because I
Uh,
know dogs have like super sensitive ears and
mm,
stuff.
Well, to be honest, I mean, he does take a shine more to the acoustic stuff. I have a background in like jazz and classical playing, so when I pull out like my nylon string and start doing those, he's like genuinely like, "Oh, this is nice." He'll come in and hang out and stuff. But yeah, when it's loud, like if I'm doing something pretty loud, like he'll just kind of scoot to the other end of the house and like hang out on the bed or something. But luckily, the one of the things I've been exploring a lot since like this whole thing happened is there's a ton of really great amp plugins these days. Like there's like the Amplitube, there's the Guitar Rig, there's the Neural DSP, there's what was the other one that I just got? There's like a couple Waves ones that are really good, and I've just been like that's been my like little side project that I've been getting into, is just like nerding out on all these like amp plugins, and those like you plug into your system and you can have it pretty quiet. So that's been a good balance for the two of us. Because he used to, like, when he was a really teeny dog, I'd be like practicing during the day, and he just, I like to do it with headphones, so I'd just be chilling there, and he'd just like want to kind of like sit like
Right.
underneath. So it's always been like a little bit of a thing where he'll hang out, he'll tell me like when I should take a break too. It's like one of those time management skill. Like I'm terrible with time management, so like having a little buddy who's like, hey, let's go do something else. And you're like, okay, cool, man. That's actually really what I should be doing right now.
Yeah, he's like your manager.
Yeah,
Yeah. You,
exactly.
I was checking out your rig that you perform with,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a lot of pedals, and I get it. You're looking for different tones, and you're always experimenting to get a different sound. Could you possibly ever have too many pedals?
Yes, absolutely. And I've been there. It's kind of funny because my approach with all that stuff has gone like from one end of the spectrum to the complete opposite. Even in the past, 10, well, I guess probably more like the last like 15 years or so. When I was really young, my early influences, like like my favorite guitar player was Jeff Beck. And he was a guy that, like, he just plugs into an amp and turns it up really loud and just does all these wild things with his hands and stuff to make the guitar sound like something else. So I was really into that for a while. Like, I had in high school I had like a half stack and like a noise gate was my pedal. I was playing like pretty heavy stuff, like tuning down low and all that stuff. But once I started going to school, I went to USC's guitar program. They have a studio jazz program, which was like really cool because it was grounded in a lot of the traditional harmony, and like you got to take classical music history and you have to play classical guitar a little bit, and you have to play, you have to do a bunch of different things. But one of the things that they got us into was like tone crafting. It's like if you're going to get called for a gig or for a session, like you want to have the right sound as well. Like if you're walking into like a Americana like country thing, you want to have like a telly and maybe like a little Fender combo and an overdrive or two, and maybe just a couple things. Like it's I got into that whole art of like crafting tones, and after I graduated, like I went like full bore into the like I want to have like a wah and an expression pedal and a volume and a whammy and like all this stuff. And I eventually got to the point where I had like a main board, a couple pedals hanging off to the side, and then like a second like extra little sideboard of stuff. And I got to a point where I was like, man, it's taking me like half the time that I'm on stage, I'm like setting up and breaking down. So really when we started going out on the road, that was kind of when things like needed to get simplified. So anyways, long story short, like I think of it right now, I'm like, I look at my board, I'm like, oh, it's like very simple. Like I've got a whammy, I've got a tuner, I've got a boost and two overdrives, and then I've got an Eventide H9 for like fun stuff, and Strymon Timeline for the delay. So I think of it as like it's pretty simple, but I get a lot out of, obviously, like the whammy does like a zillion things. The H9 has like, they're always like coming out with new stuff too. So it keeps things fresh, but I've definitely gone back and forth over the past couple of years for sure.
Have you thought about getting, putting those other rigs together for like, and then being like, okay, this one is just for, new language, and then this other crazy board that'll be for a new experimental band?
Sure. I mean, I kind of have like a little, right now I have like a little sideboard that I just do for gigs where there's certain, like, it's more of like a mindset type of thing, to be honest, because like if I have it in front of me, I'm going to use it. And a lot of the things that I do in new language are like, I do a lot of like delay throws, with the expression pedal, and I'm kind of changing the tempo and things like that. And then a ton of whammy stuff as well. So it's like, it's kind of hard for me to keep my feet away from those things when I'm looking at them all.
Yeah.
So for some of the gigs that I like, some of the other things that I do, I have like a really, really simple like two overdrives and like a reverb and a delay type of setup. But yeah, it's like it's fun too, because like I'll jump things around from board to board, just again to like make myself like think differently as I'm using those effects.
I know you guys have a new EP out. You're working on an LP. Take me through that. As far as you never want to have the same sound, like per song.
Yeah.
Does that get a little in your head too much, or do you try not to think about that when creating a new song?
Well, I think part of what initially created this like batch of songs was a little bit of a desire to like think differently, because I guess this was probably about 2 years ago. We had been doing, we had largely just been releasing singles, and we've been recording songs that way too. Like we'd record, we'd work on 2 or 3 songs and then kind of pick one, flesh it out, finish it, record it, produce it, mix it, master it, release it. And I think what happens when you're in that cycle is you start to think, that each song like has to be a specific like type of thing. It's like, oh, we want to have like this be, like a more radio friendly thing. We want this to be more alt thing. We want this to be like a hard rock thing. Like that's honestly been part of the struggle, is like riding that line between like, what do we do? Like which direction should we really go with like, the way that we're pushing these songs, because they all come from a place that's very like open, and like our writing process is very much like just get in a room and make some noise and like, oh, that's cool. And then like you record a little bit and then you just sort of, take that initial seed and develop it. But it always comes from a place that's very like fun and free and open. So part of the intention was we were like, let's actually sit down and do an album thing, because that's going to give us an opportunity to have like the album songs. That was always my favorite thing growing up. Like, you go to the record store, you get a CD, you put it in your Walkman, and you sit there and listen to the whole thing. And it's like, yeah, you might know 2 or 3 songs from the radio, but it's like that 7th or 8th track that's like weird and spacey, and the band like just did something different. Those are always like the ones that you want to have. So we started just the whole cycle of songs was coming from a place of like, all right, let's pursue those, different ideas, and let's allow ourselves to stretch a little bit, because the intention was to do a full-length record. Now on the other end of it, once we kind of like, trimmed everything down and got everything all recorded, as we're thinking about like putting the songs out, it's been a lot more of like, okay, how do we highlight those songs that are a little bit off the, what people are expecting from us, and ultimately the decision we kind of came to was like, let's release it as like a series of things, so that it's all part of the same era, I suppose. And all the songs are connected, but like each little thing that we're going to be releasing is going to have its own identity. And, maybe one song that's more of a radio thing, one song that's more of a, like a spacey, there's some funky stuff coming down the pike here. So, and I think it all came from the idea of just being like, yeah, let's do that 7th or 8th song. Like, let's allow that to happen. So
that's very cool. I did see an article about you, and it was what was it, the 5 albums that will melt your face.
Oh yeah. Those are fun.
And it was yeah, I was reading about these people, and the only person that I recognized was Jeff Beck, but there was also somebody in there, and this was, I think, your number one, even though I'm pretty sure it was in no particular order, but the last one that I saw was about a guy who's he was a funk player, and you were talking about that this guy doesn't get into like he breaks his patterns.
Yeah.
Right. And that got me thinking, do you think in that way as well? Of not breaking like a pattern when creating and
Absolutely. I mean, probably like to a fault, to be honest. Sometimes, I mean, and that's what's good about like having like collaborative, like, a collaborative creative environment, is like having, the other dudes there to sort of be like, all right, dude, that, all 6 ideas that you just played are really cool, but that first one was like, that was great. So why don't we keep that? But that's yeah, absolutely. I'm always trying to think of, ways to expand like my language on the instrument, and, come up with different sounds. And, I guess that's like my, since I've been young, like when somebody introduced me to the idea of like music theory, I was like, wait, you mean there's like a whole like science to this shit? Like, how does that work? How do I do that? How do because when you're watching a movie, right? It's like you start crying when the violin comes in because like that chord that happens, and you're just like, you know. So there's this emotional connection to sound, right? But there's also totally a way of like understanding it, and like, you know, that's always been my path to like creativity, is like, oh well, that's an interesting like idea, let me play around with this for a while. And but yeah, definitely.
You are one of many people that have been experiencing a birthday in quarantine.
Oh yeah.
And it was funny because today I just saw a video of somebody in quarantine doing a birthday, and I wanted to get your idea of this, if this is going to be the wave of the future. And I've had this conversation before, but privately, about how COVID is changing birthdays, as far as we're no longer going to blow out candles. That is going to be an extremely antiquated tradition. And it makes sense, you know what I mean? We never thought about blowing out candles and the repercussions that it could possibly have, as far as, you know, us holding a virus or whatever. So I saw that instead of her blowing the candle, she just waved it off. And I was just, my mind was blown. I was like, oh my God, this is going to be the wave of the future. Everybody's going to start waving off the candle and not blowing it out. And I just wanted to get your take on that, and what happened. Did you go through an experience like that for your birthday?
You know, I actually had a pretty nice birthday. Like my girlfriend really, you know, sent it on the on making it happen for me, because I just turned 30 in May, and it was, you know, that's a big one, right? You want to do
Yeah.
like a big blowout, like and we had discussed, you know, some plans before all this had started, but once it did, it was like, all right, well, you know, it is what it is, like let's have fun with it, right? So she got a whole like we did the whole Zoom thing where she got a couple friends to actually like a ton of people. I was like, wow, this is really cool. You know, because I'm not one to like, you know, some people are like all about like, you know, planning big trips or whatever for their
Right.
birthdays and stuff, and that's, you know, my way has always just kind of been like, all right, well, this is a vibe, like, you know, we'll spend some time with some close friends. You know, I'm not a
Yeah.
one to make a big deal out of it, but it was pretty fun. You know, we yeah, it was one of those, like, you know, you just kind of hopped on a call for a couple hours anyways, and people kept coming in and coming out and stuff like that. And you know, we had a cake, and we had you know, we had a nice meal. It was, yeah, it wasn't too bad. But as far as the birthday candles go, I gotta get the like the epic, you know, like you know, candle pinch. Like I gotta
Oh
start doing
yeah.
that, you know. I gotta, you know, if we can't blow out candles anymore, I gotta like find some cool, like, maybe. Oh, you remember those videos they were doing where people like put they like karate kick the bottle cap off of the
Yeah.
like water bottles and
Oh
stuff.
yeah,
Yeah, maybe we start doing that with our cakes. We're like, "Wacha!"
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
whoosh, whoosh. I tried to do it. It was, yeah, Matt and I, we spent a really long time one day after rehearsal, like trying to do one where I hit it with a guitar. I think it kind of worked, but yeah, definitely no viral sensation there. I was a little bummed. It's always what you're hoping for, and you make a fool of yourself on the internet.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, there you go, people. Send us your thoughts and ideas of the new ways to blow out candles, or just to, you know, get rid of the candle, maybe in general. We will see. Two last things. Two last things. And by the way, thank you so much for coming on and being a part of the show. I truly appreciate it. Um,
Of course. Thanks for having me.
saw that you did a escape room,
Oh yeah.
and that's been a dream of mine to do. Um, walk me through that, and have you always wanted to do an escape room?
Dude, absolutely. It was really fun because we this was for um K Rock, the radio station, had this series for their locals only show with Kat Corbett, who they do these, I forget what they called it, but they were doing like a series of, you know, interviews with bands that were local and everything like that, and up and comers. But They always tried to have like a fun, like interesting activity to do, so it's not just like sitting around and being like, well, so like that was so they when they came up with that, I was like, oh, sick, because like I love like puzzles and stuff like that, and I also get like in sort of group environments like that, I tend to get like really competitive, like so once we got I was like I was really stoked that we were doing it, and once we got in there, it took a little while. Like it's a very good team building thing, because like even with the dudes that I'd spend a lot of time with, there's a certain dynamic to like figuring out a situation like that, like what each person's like role is, like whether someone's going to be like testing stuff out or figuring it out or looking at all the clues or but yeah, it was really fun. We didn't, again, my competitive side, we didn't do that well time wise, but I also realized, I was told afterwards that there's people that like they don't do it like professionally, but like there's folks that like that's their thing. Like they have a group of friends and they just go, like they'll travel to different cities and be like, oh, like they got escape rooms here, like let's try these like ones this weekend, and they like so you go into those places and there's like maybe, I think this place had like 3 or 4 different rooms, and each room like has a time like record.
Wow.
And by the time we got out, I was like when we walked in, I looked at the time, I was like, it's like what, 22 minutes? I could beat that. We'll figure this out in no time. It took like 45 minutes later. I'm like, hey, these people are like, they're pretty sharp. It's wild. Yeah.
But I was thinking, that would be a great video, just for like one of your things.
Totally.
I was like, man, I could totally see you guys like trying to like, but do it like in real time, like in each room, and then you take us through it. But of course, like as you guys are trying to figure it out, like within each room, then it has you guys playing in each room too. So
oh yeah,
trying to figure it out or something like that. But I just had that idea. I was like, man, I don't think I've ever seen a music video like that. And I was like, since you guys have done it, I'm like, maybe you guys could incorporate that into something.
Dude, I'm gonna put that on the list, man. We're always like, because we're that's, for me at least, that's always the struggle, is like, I've invested so much time into thinking about like sonic things that like the visual stuff sometimes is like really like, what do we do? Like I don't even know, like so it's always good to have some extra concepts laying around.
Yeah, for me, from me. Yeah, please do. I always pull from my life, like with everything that happens and my interviews and stuff like that. It's always I pull from my life and share those experiences, and maybe like that experience will tap into something that you didn't know about yourself or something like that. But that's just kind of like my process of doing things, and that's why I was like, oh, like let's see what would happen.
Yeah,
but. Yeah. Lastly, I saw the video that you guys did where you guys went out. This was in April.
Okay.
And you just filmed like LA just closed.
Yeah, man.
That was very cool. And what was that? Was that surreal?
Honestly, like, yeah, it was, because I for my job, as a musician, I do a lot of like teaching. We live on opposite sides of the city, and like there are rehearsal spaces over there. So like, again, before all this came down, like I was so used to driving around, like, probably, I can't even say it, like, but, every day, just every it's Los Angeles. Everybody's doing that.
Yeah.
Like, just always driving around. And when it first came down, it was like, okay, I'm just not going to go anywhere for a little while. And about 2 weeks later, as like everything kind of ground to the halt, like I was getting a little, stir crazy. And we actually, my girlfriend and I we went out for a drive. We do that often, just to kind of like get out of the house. And it was like, oh my God, there's nobody on the roads. Like you drive through Hollywood, it's empty. Like you drive through Santa Monica, like, things are boarded up, and like, it was, I think, wanting to share that experience with, especially like friends and family, like because I'm from the East Coast, like I have a lot of friends and family that like have this idea of like what LA is, you know, like we've all seen that SNL skit,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Californians, you know? It's like, but it's funny because it's so true. Like, you know, so like being in this situation and like, you know, I guess like you said, you know, just kind of trying to draw from your experiences and share that. And, you know, it was just such a unique, like this whole thing is, you know, these past couple months have been such a unique time, you know, for everybody to live through and experience. And I guess we were just kind of trying to show like our experience of that, like our vision of what that was like, and you know, just yeah. So it kind of came together, you know, really nicely too, because again, you know, as things came down, it's like you can't really find a way to do a traditional music video. You can't get a couple people in a room and just like, you know, sweat for a couple hours. Like no. So so yeah, it kind of all came together really nicely, that it was like a way to, you know, share our experience, but also like a really, you know, socially conscious and distanced way of like putting
Right.
together a music video. Cause like, you know, everything you got to find different ways to be creative, you know, Zoom, like recording sessions and sending tracks back and forth. And, you know, it's not as fast and as easy, but like it's definitely like there's been ways for us to get stuff done, you know, which I'm, you know, it's a unique experience and I'm kind of uniquely proud of it. It's been a cool time, you know.
Yeah. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of that experience. Truly appreciate it. Go check out the band New Language. I'll have all the links on my show notes, their Instagram. You can follow them on Facebook. I'll have their Spotify up, and go out, support them. Anything helps right now. I'm sure you're still a struggling, you know, musician, and any help would definitely help you. But thank you again, and we're gonna leave now with another song. But again, thank you so much for your time and coming on the show. Really appreciate it. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely, man. This was a blast. It was good. It was good to, you know, meet a new friend. Like, you know, it's like we almost like went out to a bar and had a drink. You know, there we go.
I do have my drink right here on the side. I didn't want to
Hey.
like.
Yeah, there we go, man.
Cool. Okay.
All right,
Thank
appreciate you, Albert. Good talking.
you. Good talking to you too. Thank you so much.
All right, bye.